Welcome to the second half of our Excel demonstration class. If you find that this is a little bit too fast-paced for you, there is an additional tutorial that we've linked in the description. This document is also in the description, so you can download it and follow along. Feel free to pause at any point and play with the functions yourself. So the first thing I want to show you is autofill. If you have a number, you can type numbers in, number 1, number 2. But if you have a long list of numbers or you have something else, you can use autofill. And I started with only 1 and 2. And then this little green handle here in the bottom right is the fill handle. And if you double click on it, it will fill down to the end of your data if you're in a table-like situation. Here I could also put Jan for January and copy that down. It would automatically fill in the months. Monday, Tuesday. It'll also do days of the week. And if you come to the options down here, you can tell it to fill only weekdays or all days. Switch that out. The other thing you can do is if you have some sort of text number combination, that will autofill as well, ID 0102. Sometimes you can also do things like 4, 8, start a pattern. I guess 5, 10 makes more sense. 5, 10, start your pattern. And then you can drag it as well. You don't have to double click, you can drag. And that will autofill every 5, 10, 15. But we'll stick with the ID and let that fill in. So we have 10 things here. So that's autofill and also using the fill handle. So this spreadsheet, as we're getting oriented to it, you've been kind of looking at it for a little while. You want to know where are the formulas, because this is a spreadsheet that you didn't create, somebody gave it to you. So in the home ribbon, under the find and select area here, you can do find, but you can, if you keep going down, you can find formulas. And this is a really great way to look at somebody else's spreadsheet and kind of figure out. Now it's highlighted these 2 columns here, showing you that there are formulas in these cells. So if I click on the first one, I can see that the formula is a simple multiplication. I've only clicked on it once, so I'm just seeing it, but once I click on it 2 times, or if I click on it once and then click in the formula bar, you'll see that the cells that are being referred to in this particular calculation become highlighted. So the blue cell E6 is here and the red cell G6 is here. And those are the 2 numbers that are used in this calculation. And they are highlighted here or they're highlighted here, depending on where your editing cursor is. And so as you go down these, you'll see that each one aligns with the particular numbers for that row. And they have stepped up as you go down. And this particular column, we have a formula for the overtime pay, which is the overtime hours times the hourly rate, and then multiplied by a factor of 2 for that overtime pay, which is also noted up here in this bit I. So if this were to change, say there was an administrative change to do 1.5 times for overtime instead of the very generous 2 times for overtime, we could change it here, but it won't change in this calculation because this is just a number here that's being reflected. In order to change that, we could come here, replace the number with this cell, I'm going to hit enter or accept my change. And you can see that that change has changed the calculation here. But if I were to copy this down using that fill handle at the bottom right corner, you can see that it creates a problem because now when it's updating the formula, it is bringing this particular cell reference down with it. Now there's a couple of different ways you can take care of this, and the first is using absolute references. In an absolute reference, you can use the $ to lock down the column. You can use the $ to lock down the row. So this way we're locking it in both the row and column. So if you were to move this formula to the right or the left or up or down, it will always refer to overtime rate. And then if we copy that down, it will give us the correct reference. So you see here, it's still referring to this 1.5 that we entered here. So now if we change this to 2, we'll see how those numbers update back to what they were. Those references are, that's how you used to have to do it. I'm going to show you a little trick right now that can make it a little bit more intuitive. So if I take this cell, I can rename it. I can come up here to the name box and call this OT rate and hit enter. And so now in my name box, instead of being I4, this is OT rate. So I can come here and I can actually type OT rate, and it will know exactly what I'm referring to, and it will update the formula to be that. And you can see that it will copy down and it will understand that relationship still. So that's one way that you can get around that. You can also use it for a whole column. So, so we call this column reg pay. And then this range, if we select this range, we can call this OT pay. So now when we come here, we can do our calculation, adding up these particular cells. And we can copy that down. We can also here, when you want to enter a function, you can start typing the name of the function equals and the name of the function, and it will start coming in. If you don't know the name of the function, you have some nice things here up in the editing area under Autosum. You can come here and just do sum, average, count, max, and min pretty quickly, especially if it's just a column and you're at the bottom of the column of numbers. It will automatically sense that that's what you want. And you see here, instead of putting the range of numbers, it's put in my reg pay. I can copy that over and it updates. It doesn't update because we've put in, essentially locked in that thing. So here we would have to come and put the range in manually. So this is one place where locking it in like that does create, you have to know whether you've locked it in with an absolute reference or you're using the relative reference. So here, if we just put some, open your argument, get your range, hit enter. If we took this and copied it over, it would auto update because it's just doing that range and updating that range. Come to a spreadsheet that you didn't design and you'll find that somebody has done this, where they've taken the title taken a group of cells and done the merge and center because it's right here and it does make it look good. The only problem is now if you were to try to use this for sorting and filtering, you run into problems with this being a merged cell. And also it will try to include these other pieces of information. So the way that you can get around that is to get your data table together, just the data set, format it as table like we did before. My table has headers, okay, and then remove some of that extra formatting. And then you've got your table that you can come over here and do your filters and sorts. So here, there's a number filter. And so you can pick anything that's less than a certain number or greater than a certain number or equal to. So greater than 0. So then we'll see these are only the people who have overtime this particular pay period. And then here we can clear that filter. You can see that the totals didn't change. It still was working with the whole table. So here we can do some sorting. We can also, the sorting and filtering will work here, and that's one thing you can add. So let's go back to our contact spreadsheet that we started with and think about using this to do some kind of a little bit more advanced calculations. This number is not stored as it appears here. If you come to your home area, you'll see that it's stored as a date number format. If you switch it back over to general, you'll see that the date is stored as a number, and this is the number of days since January 1st, 1900. And so that is good to know that these dates are stored in days. So we can use that to do math. So if I undo that format change, leave these as dates. If you use your keyboard and you hit Control semicolon, you can insert today's date. If you use Control Shift semicolon, or essentially colon, you'll insert a timestamp. And then you can do both. So you can do Control semicolon, space, Control Shift colon, enter, and you'll see that those serial numbers have all, those date stamps have all been applied, but it's stored now. It's not going to update. And if you come here to your date and make those general, you can see that this is in days, and this is essentially a fraction of the day. So we're about a little less than halfway through the day today, starting at midnight, obviously going through to noon would be 0.5. And then here is that put together as one large number. So this is how it's storing those dates and times. You can undo that, and you'll see that here. In order to have a birthday though, an age, so I'm playing with this because now you know what today is and you know what the birthday was, you can calculate their age. But we want this to update, so every time that we come into the spreadsheet, it will put in a new date. So to do that, we need to use a function, and you can come here to the formula bar and click on the Insert Function button if you don't know the one already. And it should come up with a dialog box. And you can start typing some things to, and it will put in some suggestions. Actually, I think before I did that, it had a better it had the one I wanted actually. So anyway, there's one that's called today. And if you hit OK, it'll tell you what it does. It returns the current date formatted as a date. And the function takes no arguments. So that means it doesn't need any extra data in there. So here is today again, but this time, if you opened it tomorrow, it would say tomorrow's date. If we had opened it 6 months from now, it would say the date 6 months from now. So here's that. And I'm going to call this column now today. And I can copy that down using that fill handle or double clicking on the fill handle, and it will copy that formula down so that we can do math on every single one of these rows. I'm going to build out this function or this formula step by step, just to show you don't have to do it all in one cell if you prefer. So how do we know how many days have passed between today and this birthday? We'll do a subtraction and we'll get an age essentially, but it will be in the unit of days because these are days that we're looking at. So that's the nice thing about having these stored as a serial, as a number rather than as a date, so that we can easily do the math. So if we take today's date, so start our function, our formula with equals today's date, and then we're going to subtract the birthday. And you'll see that because we are in a table, it is inserting these with those column headings. And it is auto filling for us. So that's one of the fun things about being in already formatted as a table. If you find that this is doing too much for you and you don't appreciate it, if you're clicked anywhere in the table, you get table design tab here, and you can come back here to convert to range, and it will unformat your table and put it back to just a data table. So you can go backwards and untable the table. Okay, so we have an age in days, but what we really want is the age in years because that is more functional for us. We understand that. That's how we talk about people's ages. We don't say I'm 17,000 days old. We say I'm so many years old. So we need to do the conversion essentially. So here is the age in days. And if we divide that by days in a year, we'll get years. And that's 365.25. So for that leap year every 4 years. And that can just be a number because it will be the same number for all of these. And you'll see we get a number with a lot of different, a lot of extra data that doesn't really need to be there. So up here under number, you can change the number of decimal points that are showing. And you see how when it gets to be too big for the cell, it does do that number thing that we saw last time. So here, I'm watching this one here, 48.6. When I squish it down, all of a sudden it rounds up to 49. And that's not how we think about people's ages. We think about this person is 48 until they hit 49, not when they hit 48 and a half. So we're going to want to do one more calculation. And I'm going to look for a function here. I'm going to use this find your function. And I want to do a round down essentially. And here we have several different rounding functions. Even rounds a positive number up and a negative number down. That's not quite right. Rounds a number down to the nearest multiple of significance. Seems a little complicated. Int rounds a number down to the nearest integer. That's pretty much what we want. Round down rounds a number down towards 0. So that might work as well. But Integer, we definitely want it to be an integer. We don't want it to just round off a couple of decimal points. We want it to go to the integer. So this seems like the best one. So I'm going to hit OK. It will give us a dialog box here. So what do I want to take the integer of? And that is this here in the J column. I can hit OK and it will insert that and then copy it down because we're in a table. So now I have everybody's ages, and if I come back in 2 years, it'll be updated. I can come here, select these columns, and if I right click, you can hide columns. So now you have that calculation that you built step by step, but you don't have to see the whole thing. All that information will come across and you can just look at the data that you want to look at. In order to unhide columns, you do have to select both sides of the hidden area, and you can kind of see here this little narrow bit that there are hidden cells there. Also, the letters don't update. So you can come down here, right click, and then unhide, and you can see all of your columns again. We can also, of course, build this formula all at once, and I'm going to do that real quick. But I just want to say that you don't have to. So you can use this method to just kind of logic through your calculation and then hide the bits that you don't want to see. So if we do age all at once, we're going to have to use parentheses to keep track of where we are. And okay, so every formula, every function, every formula starts with an equals sign, equals. And if we kind of work our way backwards, this is the one where we use integer. So we're going to take the integer of our calculation. Well, what are we taking the integer of? We're taking our integer of that calculation, which was today, open parentheses, close parentheses, minus birthday, G2. And then we can close that. So now we've got, you can see that it's updating here and here, that the parentheses now, the red parentheses matches the red parentheses, and these purple ones match up. So it is helping you keep track of your parentheses. And then we're going to divide that subtraction by a 365.25 like we did before. Close that. So this is our int. We're taking the integer of this whole calculation. So we have our subtraction here, our division here, and then the integer function there. And you'll see that it comes up with the same as before. So you can do it all at once. I know this was kind of quick and dirty, and I hope you see a few interesting ways that you can use these features, and be sure to ask us if you have any questions. We're more than willing to look at your spreadsheets and try to help you figure out how to get your calculations done. Thanks.